Meghan Markle is apparently fully prepared to go to war with royal commentators Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower, and the entire explosive situation hinges on a specific narrative that the mainstream headlines managed to get almost completely wrong from the very beginning. That is the crucial part of this unfolding saga that absolutely nobody seems to be talking about with any real analytical depth. Everyone in the media is currently hyper-focused on the aggressive lawsuit threats and the now iconic elephant crushing an ant quote, which, to be perfectly fair, provides an incredible, deeply memorable visual for the public. But if you actually go back to the original source material and listen to exactly what Lady C said, word for word, you will realize that she absolutely never used the word affair, not once. Not in any broadcast, not in any podcast, and not in any written interview. What she actually reported to her audience was far more carefully constructed, highly specific, and legally impenetrable than any sensationalized tabloid headline ever suggested. She explicitly stated that Prince Harry has developed genuine, deep feelings for a woman currently residing in Montecito, that this specific woman possesses genuine feelings for him in return, and that Meghan discovered certain messages on Harry's personal phone that directly led to a highly serious, emotionally charged confrontation between the couple. In strict legal terms, that is absolutely not an affair claim. That is a highly precise set of reported emotional facts, allegedly sourced from well-positioned individuals operating within their inner circle. Lady C meticulously chose every single word before she even opened her mouth, because she undoubtedly already knew the heavy legal threat from California was coming before she had even finished articulating her first sentence. That is exactly where the narrative gets incredibly weird and highly revealing about the internal dynamics of the Sussex camp. The official response to this rumor came swiftly, delivered through an exclusive piece in New Idea magazine in Australia. The article painted a glowing picture of Harry and Meghan standing completely, firmly united against the malicious claims, featuring a convenient insider, confirming there is absolutely no truth to anything Lady C reported. It was the smoothest, most carefully managed public image the Montecito public relations operation could possibly assemble on such short notice. But buried deep inside that very same article was one single, glaring line that completely undermined and destroyed everything they were desperately trying to project to the world. The article stated that Harry has apparently been sitting down with Meghan and actively reminding her that it is simply not the royal way to take aggressive legal action against commentators and published authors. I need you to stop and think very carefully about exactly who that sentence is actually describing. Prince Harry, the man who notoriously sued the British government over his personal security arrangements, the man who aggressively dragged the publishers of the Daily Mail through years of highly expensive, bitter litigation, the man who has launched more aggressive legal actions against the British press than absolutely any other royal in living memory. That exact man is supposedly now sitting calmly in a Montecito mansion, coaching his wife on the vital importance of royal restraint and quiet dignity. If that detail is actually true, then this entire narrative makes absolutely no logical sense whatsoever. Genuinely united couples do absolutely not need to have that particular, tense conversation. If you are truly standing united against a false claim, why is one of you desperately having to convince the other not to immediately call the lawyers and sue? That is absolutely not unity. That is a massive, internal disagreement being actively managed, spun, and broadcast in real time through the glossy pages of a magazine in Australia. How did Lady Colin Campbell actually respond when the looming lawsuit threat finally reached her desk? She absolutely did not react with panic. She did not issue a carefully worded, groveling apology pushed through a nervous publicist. She did not make a quiet, backdoor approach to intermediaries, desperately trying to reach some kind of financial settlement to make it all go away. She calmly sat down in front of a camera, looked directly into the lens, and boldly stated, "I am not afraid of Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle is a third-rate greaser and a bully. I'm used to first-rate bullies. She does not frighten me in the slightest, and if she tried anything on me, I would crush her the way an elephant crushes an ant." Your audience has been waiting for years to hear someone finally say those exact, unfiltered words publicly, without softening them, and without utilizing the careful, diplomatic, tiptoeing language that usually wraps around absolutely anything connected to the Sussexes. She delivered that devastating quote calmly and without a single moment of hesitation, while remarkably still recovering from a serious illness at Castle Goring. She then went even further to establish her dominance in this feud. In nearly 50 years of highly public commentary, Lady C has absolutely never once been found legally inaccurate. She has never once been forced to retract a single printed word under legal pressure, and she has never once had a legal action brought against her that succeeded anywhere in the world. That is undeniably not the track record of a woman who is worried about a frivolous lawsuit. That is the formidable track record of a woman who has been patiently waiting for the legal paperwork to finally arrive so she can engage in battle. Now, it is vital to critically look at what currently stands on the opposite side of this impending legal fight. Meghan's own highly publicized privacy case against Associated Newspapers eventually ended with the presiding judge explicitly noting in his written judgment that she had absolutely not been fully truthful throughout the proceeding regarding her hidden cooperation with the authors of the biography. Finding freedom. The damages she was reportedly awarded for her privacy claim eventually amounted to exactly £1. A singular, nominal £1 is absolutely not a victory in any meaningful, vindicating sense of the word. It is a permanent, highly public record of courtroom unreliability, officially entered into British legal history, that absolutely anyone can look up and reference at any time they choose. So, when Meghan aggressively threatens to sue Lady C for defamation, the absolute first thing any serious legal observer naturally does is look at her previous track record in court, and that track record is undeniably, historically weak. That is absolutely not a biased opinion. That is a documented historical outcome. And Lady C deeply knows it. Investigative journalist Tom Bower deeply knows it. And Prince Harry's own highly paid legal team absolutely knows it better than anyone. But here is the glaring inconsistency that absolutely everyone in the mainstream media keeps willfully missing. The Sussexes fight the recent affair, or emotional entanglement, claims incredibly aggressively, threatening legal fire and brimstone immediately. Yet, they have absolutely never once legally challenged the persistent surrogacy claims that have surrounded them. Not one aggressive lawyer has sent a cease and desist letter. Not one official denial has been issued. Not one spokesperson has provided a clarifying response on the record. Why is that? Lady Colin Campbell has been loudly raising highly serious, specific public questions about the exact circumstances surrounding the births of Archie and Lilibet for years now, not just in recent months. She has dedicated years of public broadcasts reaching millions of people internationally to this very topic. Those highly specific questions have been actively discussed, fiercely debated, and repeatedly amplified by massive audiences across multiple countries and on absolutely every major social media platform. And the official Sussex response has been complete, deafening, unbroken silence on that precise subject, while absolutely everything else gets fought tooth and nail with every available legal resource and maximum public aggression. When you actually look at exactly what was said versus exactly what happened, the behavioral pattern is absolutely undeniable. They aggressively challenge absolutely everything else that threatens their carefully curated narrative without a single moment of hesitation, but they never ever touch those specific claims regarding the births. Not once, not ever. And that is absolutely not, because the claims are simply too ridiculous to dignify with a response. If they were truly too ridiculous, the formidable Sussex legal machine would have ruthlessly dismissed them years ago with a single, sharp, undeniable statement and swiftly moved on. Instead, they have willingly allowed the questions to just sit there in the public square, growing significantly larger, more detailed, and far more persistent with every passing year, remaining entirely unanswered while their lawyers aggressively fire off warnings about completely different, arguably much less damaging stories. That is absolutely not the normal behavior of people who have absolutely nothing to hide. That is the highly calculated behavior of individuals who have determined that absolute silence on one specific subject is infinitely safer than enduring the brutal process of legal discovery, where actual medical records and sworn testimonies would be subpoenaed. Author Tom Bower responded to the current threats with equal, chilling stillness. He confidently holds the receipts, and he intimately knows exactly what filing that lawsuit actually triggers. In his explosive book, Revenge, Bower laid out the details of the Sussexes' highly publicized Colombia trip in a level of exhaustive detail that absolutely should have ended their humanitarian narrative permanently. The entire, highly publicized international trip raised approximately a mere $8,000 for local charities. An astonishingly low $8,000, resulting from a massive transatlantic private jet humanitarian mission, equipped with a full, dedicated media and PR team in tow. While that supposed charity work was happening on the ground, Meghan was notably changing her expensive luxury designer outfits between 4 and 5 times every single day of the visit. Every single outfit change was immediately followed by a highly coordinated social media post. And absolutely every single post carried a direct affiliate link to a commercial shopping page where purchases made by her eager followers generated direct, personal commission income specifically for Meghan. So, when you strip away the lofty rhetoric, you effectively have a supposed humanitarian mission, actively running a personal commission shopping operation simultaneously throughout the entire trip. That is absolutely not public service. That is a highly lucrative, perfectly orchestrated business trip, utilizing global poverty and charity as a convenient, photogenic backdrop. Bauer meticulously watched hours of raw footage from that specific trip for his deep research. He accurately described Harry at the formal state receptions and official dinners as looking completely and totally lost, standing awkwardly in crowded rooms full of vibrant conversation, happening entirely in a language he does not speak, smiling blankly at what merely seemed like the correct moments, entirely without any real, fundamental understanding of what was actually happening around him. Bauer bluntly wrote that behind Harry's fixed, rehearsed smile and every single piece of footage he examined, he found complete, hollow emptiness looking back. Then, in a moment of sheer cognitive dissonance, Meghan stood confidently before a room full of vulnerable children, living in genuine, grinding poverty. Children who literally did not know where their next meal was coming from, and bizarrely instructed them to pursue joy. And then came the single most revealing, disastrous moment of the entire period, Harry's own highly publicized mental health conference in New York. The high-profile event was supposedly built and launched specifically around fiercely protecting children from the serious, documented psychological harms of social media. When a participant pointedly asked him directly for his actual, actionable solution to the precise problem this massive conference had been explicitly created to address, Harry looked blankly back at the room, stumbled over his words, and simply said he did not know. Meghan had to step in immediately, grab the microphone, and desperately rescue the moment from collapsing entirely in front of the cameras. The very man aggressively threatening to drag Lady C and Tom Bauer through a full, exhausting multi-million-dollar courtroom proceeding absolutely cannot answer a basic, foundational question at his own conference about his own supposed philanthropic cause. Now, we must step back from the immediate legal battle for just one moment, because something incredibly significant has been sitting quietly in the background of this entire story that connects much more directly to absolutely everything happening right now than most people have yet joined up. Meghan Markle has absolutely not been wearing her iconic, highly recognizable engagement ring in public for months. Not just a few days, and not just 2 weeks, with a highly convenient, PR-approved explanation about having a loose prong checked or a stone professionally inspected by a jeweler. This has been 4 complete, uninterrupted months of highly documented public appearances, featuring a completely bare ring finger, all while the obsessive fashion journalists, who meticulously document her every single outfit choice and every facial expression, somehow completely failed to notice what was glaringly missing from her left hand. This specific ring is reportedly worth $140,000. It prominently contains 2 flawless diamonds that once belonged to the late Princess Diana. It heavily carries the entire, massive emotional weight of the fairy tale origin story the Sussex brand was originally constructed around: the romantic Botswana camping trip, the private, intimate proposal in the kitchen, the beautiful beginning presented to a watching world as something incredibly rare, genuine, and truly worth believing in. Gone, completely absent for 4 solid months, before anyone in the mainstream, friendly press finally looked down at her hand and asked a single question. Journalist Maureen Callahan astutely saw something completely different when she finally looked closely at this calculated omission. She pointed directly to the iconic, historic image of Princess Diana sitting entirely alone at the Taj Mahal in 1992, one of the absolute most photographed women alive, sitting completely alone in front of the most famous monument to romantic love on the planet, completely surrounded by the world's entire, ravenous press corps. And absolutely without a single spoken word, without a frantic spokesperson issuing a press release, without a carefully prepared PR statement of any kind, Diana brilliantly communicated to absolutely every single person watching exactly what was tragically happening inside her failing marriage. You vividly remember that photograph. You understood immediately exactly what Diana was silently saying to the world entirely without needing anyone to translate it for you. Lady C completely agreed the exact moment that brilliant comparison was raised. because Meghan Markle absolutely does not remove a highly symbolic ring worth $140,000, containing Diana's own diamonds, without thinking incredibly carefully about exactly what that bare finger communicates to absolutely everyone, obsessively watching her public appearances. The question is absolutely not whether removing it was deliberate. Absolutely everything Meghan does publicly is highly deliberate, focus-grouped, and calculated. The real question is exactly who the message is actually meant for. And the timing of it arriving right in the exact middle of explosive emotional affair claims and rampant reports of highly serious private tension between Harry and Meghan is absolutely not something your astute audience is going to accept as merely coincidental for even a single second. Then, a wild, almost conspiratorial theory emerged this week that the entire affair story had actually been deliberately planted by Meghan's own PR team to publicly trap Lady C. The idea was to intentionally feed false, scandalous information through a supposedly trusted source, gleefully watch Lady C report it as absolute fact, and then triumphantly expose her as completely unreliable in front of millions of viewers worldwide. Lady C utterly dismissed this convoluted plot in 3 sharp sentences. She stated firmly that she has known her specific sources personally from the very first moment they spoke. She meticulously verified absolutely everything before speaking publicly, and she bluntly said the ridiculous idea that she could possibly be outmaneuvered by someone operating at that amateur, desperate level was absolutely not something deserving a serious response. But here is exactly what that convoluted theory accidentally reveals, entirely without meaning to. If Meghan's PR team was positioned closely enough to even attempt that kind of complex, black ops disinformation operation, they are absolutely not calm. They are absolutely not living peacefully and serenely above all of this in the California sunshine. They are obsessively monitoring Lady C's every single word, every public appearance, and every uttered sentence, with something that looks a great deal like genuine, palpable fear running underneath every single PR move they make. Tom Bower revealed something incredibly damning in. So, according to that absolutely should have led every single news bulletin in the week it was published, yet it was almost completely, inexplicably ignored by the mainstream press. Go back to the heartbreaking moment when Princess Catherine bravely announced her cancer diagnosis to the world. The entire country essentially stopped. Millions of people sat in front of their televisions and phones, in genuine profound shock and fear, hoping, praying, and watching absolutely every single update with their hearts completely in their mouths. Many of you reading this right now vividly remember exactly where you were when that terrible news broke, and exactly how those long, painful weeks of waiting anxiously felt for the entire country. According to Bower's highly placed sources, inside the sprawling Montecito mansion, the atmosphere was strikingly, coldly different from that national outpouring of grief. Harry and Meghan were reportedly very, very late in sending absolutely any form of commiserations or private support to Catherine at all. And the exact moment she made a very small, human editing error on a Mother's Day photograph, while privately, agonizingly undergoing grueling chemotherapy and trying desperately to protect 3 young children from the harsh, terrifying truth about their mother's illness, Meghan's ruthless PR machine was already actively moving. Negative stories analyzing the photo were heavily encouraged and amplified by their associated mouthpieces. The Sussex digital operation worked actively and aggressively in the background, while a sick woman quietly fought for her life and tried desperately to hold her vulnerable family together, with absolutely every ounce of strength she had left. Catherine's response to this malicious onslaught was complete, dignified silence. Not one single retaliatory story planted with a sympathetic, friendly journalist. Not one aggressive spokesperson comment designed to retaliate or shift the vicious news cycle. Not one carefully timed, malicious briefing passed to a friendly publication. Just total, unshakable silence, extraordinary grace, and a level of true dignity under immense pressure that most ordinary people in her position could absolutely not have sustained for even a single afternoon. The stark, undeniable contrast between those two completely different responses requires absolutely no further explanation. Then there is what the formidable Princess Anne reportedly told someone incredibly close to her years before absolutely any of this drama became visible to the public. She astutely observed that Meghan was deeply gripped by what she accurately called red carpet fever, and that absolutely nothing would ever stop her relentless search for the blinding spotlight. Not sacred family duty, not harsh public criticism, and certainly not the immense collateral damage being done to the people around her. Princess Anne incredibly said those exact words, years before the rest of the world started catching up to the reality of the situation. Your audience intimately knew it too, right from the very first, rehearsed engagement interview. You were constantly told you were entirely wrong, deeply biased, and unfairly reading too much into things. You were absolutely none of those things. You were simply paying careful, critical attention, while the rest of the world around you actively chose to look somewhere else entirely. And that is exactly the thing about Princess Anne. She absolutely does not say things merely for dramatic effect. She does not sneakily brief journalists in the dark. She absolutely does not play the toxic game of palace whispers and carefully timed leaks. She simply, quietly observes, forms a highly accurate judgment based on decades of unparalleled experience watching people enter and exit the royal orbit, and then states the absolute truth without absolutely any interest in whether it makes her popular or not. When she said those prophetic words, she was absolutely not guessing. She was looking clearly at a behavioral pattern that had already fully formed before most of the public had even begun to notice it. So, here is exactly where all of this finally lands. Harry and Meghan have fought back incredibly aggressively against virtually every single negative story that has reached them over the past several years. Tabloids have been aggressively taken to hugely expensive, drawn-out court proceedings lasting years. The British government has been relentlessly challenged over personal security arrangements, and Samantha Markle's legal action was fiercely resisted with absolutely every available legal resource until a judge finally ordered Meghan to submit to full cross-examination under oath, at which precise moment the highly aggressive legal posture quietly, suddenly dissolved into complete silence, and the case was dismissed to avoid discovery. Right now, they are fighting Lady C's claim with high-priced lawyers, heavily coordinated media responses, and friendly publications running the preferred Sussex version of events at full volume. But the persistent claims about the births, the specific ones that would actually require hard documentation, medical records, and sworn testimony to resolve definitively in open court, those remain entirely untouched. That glaring silence is absolutely not an oversight. That silence is a highly calculated strategy, because the exact moment that specific lawsuit actually gets filed, the burning question your audience has been asking for years finally receives its definitive answer in a highly public courtroom, on a permanent, searchable record, in front of the entire world watching. Lady C is absolutely not scared. Tom Bower is absolutely not scared. The absolute only people in this entire story who look genuinely deeply frightened right now are the ones making all the loud, hollow threats. And honestly, the undeniable fact that they won't just answer the simple question is the truly weird part. But let's go one critical step further, because there is a highly predictable pattern here that extends far beyond this single, isolated story. Every single time the Sussexes face a significant challenge they cannot manipulate or control, their response follows the exact same shape. First, the aggressive legal threat designed to ruthlessly intimidate the source into immediate silence. Second, the friendly, sympathetic publication running a carefully worded insider denial that usually contains one or two details which accidentally reveal significantly more than they conceal. Third, the highly coordinated digital operation pushing the preferred narrative across every single friendly platform. And fourth, when absolutely all of that fails to move the needle, a complete and total, quiet retreat from the specific subject, while attention is frantically shifted to something safer. We have seen this exact, exhausting sequence play out so many times now that it has become entirely predictable. Lady C knows the sequence, Tom Bower knows the sequence, and your highly observant audience has learned to recognize it from the very first sentence of the very first headline. The massive difference this time is that Lady C absolutely did not blink. She did not issue a weak clarification. She did not soften a single reported word. She confidently repeated absolutely everything, expanded on it, and then added the devastating elephant and the ant line on top of it all as a final, defiant punctuation mark. That is absolutely not the behavior of someone who is worried about losing a lawsuit. That is the behavior of someone who deeply understands that the absolute truth, carefully documented and precisely reported, is the absolute strongest legal defense that exists in the world. And the longer this tense standoff continues, the more blindingly obvious it becomes that the people loudly threatening legal action are the exact ones who least want to see the inside of a courtroom.